Have you ever wanted to have an artistic skill or ability? So you've looked up videos or you've looked in books of how to draw or sketch or even paint. And then you find that it's too hard or difficult? Well, maybe you're thinking too hard about it. Have you ever wanted to create your own greeting cards or thank you cards? Then you've come to the right place. I have been in art classes since ninth grade, so I've been in art classes for almost 6 years with intensive training in watercolors in particular. I went to the Delaware College of Art and Design and studied under Rachel Bonzi for the use of wet materials such as watercolor. So I have lots of credibility in this, so I feel appropriate to teach this to you today. To paint with watercolor, you need to know these things: the required materials, how to care for the materials, how to put the paint on the paper, and how to add the final touches to add dimension to your artwork. So the first thing we need to go over is the materials needed for the piece. Typically in watercolor, you want to use an old table or an old placemat to keep your work area clean. You don't want to ruin a nice table or a nice tablecloth or anything, so you want to make sure you're working on an old surface or material. You're going to need a cup of water. You're going to need paper, paint, and a palette. The paint I am using today is liquid watercolor, but typically watercolor comes in a pan like this. And you add the water to the pan to get the color. But liquid watercolor comes in a bottle and it has to be diluted with water directly. So you need the paint. You also need a paper towel to clean your brush in between washes, and rubbing alcohol to add the final touches to your piece. So first, we're going to take a large, a flat brush. This is a 3/4 inch, and we're going to dip that in the water, and we're going to lay a layer of clean water on our paper. This is called a flat wash, and the flat wash helps prep the paper for the paint because watercolor needs water to appropriately mix and make the colors that you want. So we're going to add a flat wash of water onto our paper. Perfect. And you want to make sure that this stays wet. If it dries, then your paint will not move how it should, although that can be used for other techniques if you are looking to use that technique. So next we're going to take this brush, stays here, so we're going to take another brush and we're going to add any color pigment, and you'll see that because of the water on the paper, the color is more free to move and blend and mix. So the color kind of moves on its own. So watercolor is very unpredictable, and you always create something new. It's almost impossible to replicate the same thing because it all is dependent on how much water is laid on the paper, how much pigment is in the water, the brush size. It all really depends. So every time you paint, you'll make something new, even if you paint it the same exact way you did last time. So while we're painting, we want to make sure that we're keeping the materials clean and using them appropriately. So we want to make sure that we clean the brush thoroughly between our switching of colors, because if not, you can ruin the colors in your palette already, and that can be crucial when you're working on a really big project or assignment and you need the same color palette. So as you can see up here, there's no water on the paper, so the paint is just staying on the paper. It's not moving anywhere. So we want to make sure that the paper stays wet. Keep it nice and wet. And then you're going to go in with your flat brush. You're going to add water to all the lines on the outside of the colors, and that's really going to help blend that together. really bring it together, merge the colors, and then you create some new colors. So we have a nice purple over here, and we have a green where we've mixed the primary colors. Also, while we're painting, we want to make sure that we don't leave the brushes in the water for too long, because if we leave them in there for too long, it can bend the bristles, and then that can create a paintbrush problem that we do not need. So after we do that, we let it dry for a moment, and then we go for the rubbing alcohol. So we're going to open this, and we're going to use a straw or a dropper or anything of the sort, and watch how awesome this is. You add a drop of water, see, look at that, and it adds beautiful sunbursts onto your paper. So these are very nice for floral paintings, and they're also very nice for clouds. I think they make great techniques for clouds. So we'll let that sit and dry, and then when it's finished, you take your calligraphy pen or any pen of the sort, you write your greeting on it or whatever you want to say, and you have a completed piece. So now that you know the materials, how to take care of them, how to use the paint on the paper, and how to create a fun texture, you can make art all by yourself. Watercolor painting is always different, and it's never the same no matter how you do it. So just because you don't like your first piece doesn't mean you should give up.